Hi, I'm trying the live one last time to see if I'm still cutting out or not. If I'm still cutting out, I'm just going to make a video, edit it, and upload it later. But I'm hoping that my internet is better now. I just did a speed test and it said it was fast, so I'm hoping. I don't know what was happening. If it's working for you and I'm not freezing, let me know. And then I will keep going with sourdough sandwich bread. Hello, hi, welcome. Hopefully some of you guys that were on earlier are able to join, and hopefully my Wi-Fi is actually working now. But, oh good, it's working. Okay, not freezing. Hallelujah. All right, we're gonna go for it. If at any point it becomes an issue, just let me know. But if you were already on the live earlier, we are making sourdough sandwich bread. And this is my active starter recipe. This is on my website. It's the best sourdough sandwich bread is the name of it. Okay, I'm so glad this is working because I didn't want to have to do the other things. That was the other options. Okay, well, in that time we were able to get our bread dough kneaded. So I will show you that now. And we'll see how it's looking. Okay, so see how my dough isn't really sticky. So if you missed the first one, the first live that I did earlier, the actual ingredients that we're adding in here are pretty simple. So we're adding our sourdough starter, warm milk, warm water, about like 80 degrees or so. Either 50 grams of sugar or honey. You could also use maple syrup. And then we have 1/4 cup or 57 grams of melted butter, 10 grams of salt, 100 grams of whole wheat flour, and 400 grams of bread flour. And something that I mentioned in there is that if you want to add more whole wheat, you can to the recipe. I actually, in my same day sourdough cookbook, have a same day 100% whole wheat sourdough sandwich bread in there. But you can add more whole wheat to your recipe. Just know the more whole wheat you add, the denser the dough can be. Yes, I am back, and hopefully this is working now. But you can also, if you don't want to add whole wheat, you could just do a full 500 grams of the bread flour. And I don't want to repeat myself too much just because some of you were on a little bit ago. So I will make sure in the email recap that I do, and I'll link that in my stories after this. But the email recap that goes out tomorrow, I'll make sure to include all the tips that I shared in the last live that was having issues, and then also from this one. Okay, so you can see this dough is nice and strong. See, this is what's called a window pane test. So window pane test is when I can pull this thin enough that I can see light through it without it tearing. So as you can tell, my dough is pretty strong. That gives me a good indication of gluten development, and I know that my gluten is pretty well developed at this point. So this is just called a slap and fold. Is that what it's called? Now I'm blanking the name of it. But basically you just slap it on top of itself so you get it nice and taut on the surface before I put it into my straight edge container. And I'm just going to take the dough that we had from our the bowl that had my other dough that we're now going to shape for the next step. I'm just going to put it in that same bowl. Okay, so once your dough passes the window pane test, it is nice and strong and smooth. We are just going to put it into our straight edge container. And at this point, you can either put it, you can let this rise overnight at a cooler temperature, like 68 to 70 degrees, or if you want to do this as the same day option, if you have your dough at about 80 degrees Fahrenheit, this can be ready in as little as 3 to 4 hours. And what we're looking for is the dough to double in size. That's why I like to use straight edge containers so I can see exactly when this is doubled. But if you don't have a straight edge container, you can just use any kind of bowl. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put this, I'm just going to put it into my proofer back here. I have a Broad & Taylor proofer, so I can just put my dough directly in here and set my temperature is already at 80 degrees. So that will sit in there for about 3 to 4 hours before it's ready to shape. But like I said, you could also do the overnight option, and I'm going to be updating my blog post in the next day or two for this sandwich bread recipe and have pictures and everything in it. But it will have both the overnight option and the same day option. But you'll notice in the recipe, it says you can add 125 to 150 grams of sourdough starter. So you'll want to use closer to 125 grams if it's warmer in your kitchen and you are leaving it overnight. And if you're going to do the same day option, I typically do 150 grams of starter because the more starter you add, it's kind of like when you add more yeast to a recipe. The more yeast you have in your recipe, the quicker it rises. So that's kind of the same thought here with your sourdough starter. Okay, so this is my dough that had already doubled in size, so I kind of have dough at each of the steps. Oh my gosh, I forgot. Hold on 1 second. With the whole Wi-Fi thing, I totally forgot that I had cinnamon raisin loaves in my oven. I'm just going to pull these out really fast because I totally forgot about that. And my timer went off a while ago. Well, this is a sneak peek of a new recipe that I made. Oh my gosh, where's my other oven mitt? Sneak peek of a new recipe I'm working on, which is a cinnamon raisin sandwich bread. But I need my other oven mitt. Where are all my oven mitts at? I swear. Oh, here. Okay. Sorry. Totally forgot about that. Okay, back to shaping. So I like to get this about the size of my loaf pan, and you want to use I think it's like an 8 by 4.5 inch, or like an 8 by 4 inch pan. It's a 1 pound loaf pan. And what I'm going to do is I'm just stretching this out to be about the length of my bread pan, and then I'm just going to roll it up. So I'm just going to roll, and as I roll, I'm kind of pulling it towards myself to create tension to get my surface smooth. And then I kind of just fold my ends in as well as I'm going. So I kind of fold those in, roll it, fold. Doesn't have to be anything fancy. Do I have, yeah, I don't have a gas stove, so yes, electric stove. Okay, every time I tried making this bread recipe, it's always more wet and runny. So a couple things. Number one, make sure you're using bread flour in this recipe, not all-purpose flour. All-purpose flour does not absorb moisture as well as bread flour. So that'd be option, or number one suggestion. Number two is make sure that your starter is not acidic. If it's a more acidic starter, that can cause your dough to become really sticky. So you want to make sure your dough is strong and it's actually at peak. It's not already falling back down. So that would be my other suggestion there. And if it's still really wet, like when you start mixing it and you're kneading it and it's not getting any less sticky, then you can add a little bit more flour to your dough. Okay, so I have my greased loaf pan here, and now I'm just gonna put my loaf into here. And now we're gonna let this sit in a warm spot for about 2 to 3 hours. We want it to be risen above this loaf pan because if we wanna get this nice, like the shape of the sandwich bread, where it has that indentation, you wanna let it rise long enough. And that's how you get a soft and fluffy sandwich bread. Okay. So voila, it magically rose. So here is our third bread. Yes, the 1 pound loaf pan, 8.5 by 4.5, thank you. Okay, so here is my sandwich bread here. So it's risen about 1 inch above the loaf pan. That's the biggest indicator that it's ready is it's grown and reaches above. You don't want to leave it for too long or it'll start to overproof, and that can lead to a denser, more pale bake at the end. But it should feel like light and airy. You can also do a poke test. See, when you poke it in, that that poke will just stay there. So another indicator that it's ready. If it immediately sprung back, it needed a little bit more time. Okay, I'm just making sure I'm not... does it rise much in the oven, or should it be risen to the point you want it to bake before it goes in the oven? It will rise a little bit more. So you can kind of see here. It doesn't rise a ton, but it will rise a little bit more in the oven. Okay, just make sure I'm not hitting any other questions. Okay, so this loaf would then be ready to bake, and we're gonna bake it at 350, and it bakes for, I forget now, about 40 to 50 minutes. You want the internal temperature to reach at least 190 degrees. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this one into the oven. And somebody said that their electric oven always burns their loaves. Something that I like to do is keep a heavy duty baking stone. This is like a Pampered Chef pizza stone, and that always stays on the bottom rack of my oven, and that helps to prevent the bottom of my loaves from burning, so that's the trick there. Okay. Do you have to buy a rectangular shaped banneton, or can I keep it in the bread pan to proof overnight? You're gonna keep it in the bread pan. This sandwich bread does not use a banneton, just the loaf pan for the second rise. So you don't need a banneton for sandwich bread. If you're talking about artisan bread, you can bake in a loaf pan if you want. So you could also do your second rise in a loaf pan if you're baking in a loaf pan. And I do have instructions for that on my website. Okay. Make sure I am not missing anything. Okay, so those are our steps. So number one, this is now a little bit shorter just because we already mixed our dough before this live, in the previous live. But you're gonna mix all your dough ingredients together until it hits the window pane test. So roughly about 10-15 minutes. You can do that by hand or in a mixer. Then you are going to put your dough into some kind of container, cover it, let it sit either at like 80 degrees if you want to do a same day bake, so it rises in like 3 to 4 hours, or you can let it rise overnight at room temperature between like 68 to 72 degrees Fahrenheit, and let that rise overnight. Then once that dough is doubled in size, then you can go ahead and shape it. You're just gonna roll it up, put it into your sandwich, into your loaf pan, a greased loaf pan, and then you're gonna let it sit for about another 2-ish, sometimes 3-ish hours, depending how warm it is, until it has risen above the loaf pan, and then you're gonna bake it. So pretty easy. This can be a good same day option, or you can do an overnight rise depending on, you know, what your schedule looks like. As far as storing your sandwich bread afterwards, I don't like to keep this on the counter for very long. It will start drying out some, and it doesn't stay as soft and fresh as like a store-bought sandwich bread does. So what I like to do is I will keep it on the counter for a couple days, usually in my bread box. And then if it's going to be longer than a few days, what I like to do is pre-slice it. And what I do personally for my family, just because oftentimes we're using this sandwich bread for my kids' school lunches, what I'll do is take 2 slices, put my peanut butter and jelly in the middle, and then I was looking for my little Uncrustable cutter, but I can't find it, but I will link it in the email. But I will pre-make a bunch of Uncrustables, essentially. So I'll just cut this all up, add my peanut butter and jelly, put it on top, and then I kind of seal it with that little Uncrustable thingy. I wish I could find where the heck it is. Oh, here it is. So this is what it looks like. So you can either do something like this, or you could just, if you want to keep the crusts on, you could just freeze the whole thing. But then what I'll do is I'll wrap these up in plastic wrap, and then I'll put all of them in a freezer bag. And then in the mornings, I will just grab one of the sandwiches out, put it in my kids' lunchbox, and it will be defrosted in time for their lunch, which is really awesome. Okay, somebody's asking what's the main difference in outcome from the starter sandwich bread and the discard sandwich bread. It's honestly just whatever you're looking for as far as timing goes. I will say, like a discard sandwich bread, the yeast in it just makes it a little bit, it does make like a lighter and softer loaf in my opinion. I still think this is light and soft, but there is just something about yeast that isn't, you just don't quite get the same results with your sourdough starter. So I like to do the discard sandwich bread often just because it's really quick and easy and it's yeast, so I don't even have to worry about making sure everything's at like a warm enough temperature. It just kind of does its thing. And if I don't have any active starter at the time, that's another good option. But this is also, if you have active starter and you're looking for something that is more long fermented, this is a good option. But they both produce delicious, flavorful bread that is soft and yummy in sandwiches. So it just kind of depends on like your personal preference. This one I usually add a little whole wheat to as well, which is good, but you can add whole wheat to either of them. Usually I like to just do a blend, so make sure it stays, it still stays soft. This recipe is on my website. Yes, this is called the Best Sourdough Sandwich Bread, but I also have a sourdough discard sandwich bread as well that uses yeast and sourdough discard, so you can pick from those two. And if you have my new cookbook, I also have a 100% whole wheat sourdough sandwich bread that is a same day loaf in here as well. And if you pre-order this, then you will get a digital copy to start baking right now. Okay, I did have a few questions that had come through a while ago when I had put together a survey. So I was just going to run through a couple of those questions as well, so I make sure I hit on those. So some people are asking, like, how do they make their sandwich bread lighter and fluffier? And the number one thing is proofing. You want to make sure that you're proofing for long enough, so you want to make sure in your first rise that your dough is doubled in size, and then your second rise, you want to wait till it's rising above the loaf pan. If you let it go for too long, like if you come back and this is like way above the loaf pan, right, like it's grown a ton, it might deflate in the oven and you might get like a gummy line on the bottom here. Usually if the loaf starts collapsing on itself, it can start getting a gummy line at the bottom. So that can be a sign of overproofing. The gummy line sometimes also can be underproofing if you don't let it rise for long enough. So just, you want to look at the cues. You want to make sure it's rising at least about an inch above. If it's grown a lot more than that, feels really airy, it's starting to lose its structure, just know it's probably overproofed and might deflate a little bit in the oven. It will still be good, just might not be as light and fluffy as if it's proofed properly. Okay, let's see. Somebody had asked, same thing, why does my bread collapse after baking? That is a sign of overproofing. If it starts, if it's not holding its shape, things like that, that is a sign of overproofing. How do I know when to stop proofing the loaf pan? So we talked about this, about an inch above the loaf pan. That's what you're looking for when you do the poke test. It should hold its indent. Okay, those were most of those questions here. So if anyone has any questions, I'll stick around for just a minute. But if not, thanks for joining me, and sorry for all of the technical difficulties, but hopefully you're able to see most of it. And as a reminder, I will save this video after and I will put in there that you can comment email below, and then if you comment email below, you can get links to all the previous 5 courses along with this one as well when I send the recap tomorrow. And if it is overproof, there's not really much you can do at that point besides just bake it and just know that it might collapse a little bit, but there's really no saving overproof dough. The good news is that you are baking in a loaf pan, so it is forced to rise up. So unlike a bread that you're baking in the Dutch oven where it will just bake out, this will still be forced to bake up. And it might change your crumb a little bit, but unfortunately not much you can do about overproofed. Underproofed, you can do something about, you let it rise for longer, but with overproofed, some people are asking, can you reshape your overproof dough? With yeast bread, sometimes that works because yeast can go a little bit longer. Sourdough, I'm not sure you would have the same success with trying to reshape it and bake it. I haven't personally tried it to know, but my best bet would just be to bake it, especially because overproof dough starts getting stickier, so it might get harder to reshape it, because it'll start getting kind of unmanageable to work with. So my best suggestion would just be to bake it. It will still be good bread, and you add some peanut butter or butter or turkey or whatever you want with it, and it will still make good sandwiches. Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions, so I'll go ahead and end it here. Thanks for joining. Again, sorry for all the technical difficulties, and hope you guys have a good day.